All right, howdy everyone, and welcome to Texas A&M's Virtual Campus Sustainability Month. We have events for you all October. So today we have a really interesting talk from Michelle Lee. She's an intern here with the Office of Sustainability, and she's going to be talking to us about the Uyghur conflict that's happening in China, something you may have heard about in the news recently. So I think she has a lot of really interesting information and really help us understand what's happening over there a little bit better. So we'll get to that in just a second, but before that, I just want to go over a couple of things with our audience here today. So the first thing is what you want to do for the best viewing experience is to turn on side-by-side mode at the top of your bar. I think it's like on the far right of the bar, you should have the opportunity to change into side-by-side mode. You can also turn on the subtitles. So if you would like to see those, that's available. We do ask that you please keep your mics muted. Throughout the course of the presentation, you can feel free to ask any questions that you have in the chat. And at the end, we will have a discussion with Michelle and ask her any of those questions. The more questions y'all have, the better that discussion is going to be. And at the end, you can also raise your hand. There's a raise your hand feature, and you can also just unmute yourself and turn your camera on once we're in the discussion section if you also wanted to do it that way. Just a couple of things that I wanted to point out about our office. We have a Sustainability Champion Awards. Those open up on the 19th of October. So just in about a week from today. And that is a great way to be recognized for anything that you're doing on campus to really advance sustainability. And we have student, faculty, and staff awards. So please apply to that and let people know about those opportunities. Also, if you're interested in being an intern like Michelle, you can apply to our internship program. The apps are going to open up on October 26th. And you may also just be here for prizes, which is fine. We're hoping you're going to learn something as well. But the directions for the prizes are, if you pay attention during the presentation, there's going to be a code word, and Michelle might speak it. It could be written on a slide. I might drop it in the chat during the presentation. It'll be indicated at some point during this presentation, the code word. And when you figure that out, write it down, keep track of it. And at the very end of whatever you're viewing, kind of how many that you want to view, if you do 2 code words, so 2 presentations, you would be able to get 1 water bottle. If you get 3 code words, you could get one of our t-shirts. You see we have the light gray and the dark gray. And if you get 5 code words, you can actually get the water bottle and the t-shirt. So once you've collected your code words, send them all at one time in an email to sustainability@tamu.edu, and you have all the way until November 9th to turn your code words in and claim your prize. You will need to be able to pick your prize up on the College Station campus. We're not able to ship those, unfortunately, and you don't have to watch live. You can watch this at a later time as well. You can still participate. So that's everything that I wanted to go over with. From here, I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. She'll share her screen and she'll take it when she's ready. So whenever you're ready, Michelle.
All right, thank you. Let me share my screen. All right. So, hi guys, my name is Michelle Lee. I'm a senior nutrition major, and today I will be talking about the Uyghur crisis in China. So first, why do we care about this? Well, I'm an intern with the Office of Sustainability, as Ben mentioned, and the A&M's definition of sustainability is the efficient, deliberate, and responsible preservation of the environment, social, and economic resources to protect our Earth for future generations of Texas Aggies, the A&M University community, and beyond. And social justice is a big part of sustainability, contrary to popular belief, where people believe that sustainability just has to do with the environmental impacts on the Earth. It actually has a lot to do with the social impacts too. And so the Uyghur crisis is something that people are being mistreated and human rights violations are being enacted. So this is why it's super important to talk about. So who are the Uyghur people? Well, they're a Turkic-speaking ethnic minority. They're predominantly Muslim, and most live in China's Xinjiang autonomous region. And basically what an autonomous region is, it's where they have their own local government, and so they have a lot more freedom in their legislature. And so China gives them a lot more freedom than their other provinces. So Tibet, for example, is another autonomous region. And Uyghurs have been persecuted by the Chinese government since 2014 because the Chinese government is afraid of religious extremism, separatism, and terrorism. And so they've been persecuted because of their religious beliefs. So how are the Uyghurs being persecuted? It started out with surveillance, such as face and voice recognition, iris scanners, DNA sampling. They've had a lot of technological increases and advances, so they've been able to surveil them pretty in depth. And also forced sterilization of Uyghur women. These women are forced to have IUDs inserted as well as be on the birth control pill. And this is to kind of thin out the Uyghur blood as generations go on, kind of just to erase their ethnic group as a whole. And then also destruction of mosques and shrines and other places of worship, forced renouncing of their faith, and promotion of inter-ethnic marriages between Han men and Uyghur women with rewards for the men. And I thought this last bullet was pretty interesting because these men are being rewarded for marrying Uyghur women. And some of these rewards include $1,450 US per year for the first 5 years of marriage, and also 20 bonus points for their children's college entrance exams. So these college entrance exams are pretty big in China. It's similar to the SAT, but it's a lot more heavily weighted for them. And so for these children of inter-ethnic parents, meaning they have one Han parent and one parent of a different ethnicity, they would get 20 bonus points on their college entrance exams. And you might think this is pretty crazy what they're doing to these Uyghur people, but actually things like forced sterilization is not uncommon, especially in the US. We have a pretty rough history of sterilizing women, especially Latin women, in the 20th century. And also with the recent ICE allegations, they've been accused of sterilizing women like across or in the detention camps at the border. So this isn't new things, but the main way that China is kind of controlling these Uyghur people right now is through the Uyghur re-education camps. And basically these camps are similar to a prison. Detainees are forced to sing patriotic songs, learn about the dangers of Islam, and take part in self-criticism, as well as learn about the President Xi Jinping's communist doctrine and things like that. And then any sort of Uyghur cultural practice is punishable. So they're not allowed to read, write, or speak in their own Uyghur language. And so these are a few pictures of these Uyghurs at their detention camps. You can see this, the one on the left, the top left, is pretty common. You guys might have seen it in news articles or things like that. They're all wearing uniforms similar to what you would wear in a prison. And then the one at the top right, they're basically taking class right now. It looks just like a normal classroom. And then the bottom picture is Uyghur women at a labor camp. They're waving Chinese flags. And when you guys look at these pictures, you might think, oh, it's not that bad. Like they're not shown like being abused or anything like that. But you have to remember that these pictures are staged and the Chinese government doesn't want outsiders to know what's really going on behind the scenes. And interestingly, they recently opened up these Uyghur camps for tourists to come visit and see what China's doing with these people. And during these tours, they'll have performances. The Uyghurs will put on plays and sing songs and show them pieces of artwork that they've made, kind of just to show them that they're not being mistreated. However, we do know that there is abuse going on behind the scenes. So responses from other countries. Last year at a UN convention, ambassadors from 22 countries formally condemned China's actions in Xinjiang, calling for UN access to the region. And these countries included many European countries like Sweden, the UK, as well as Australia and New Zealand. But the US wasn't part of this for unrelated reasons. And then in response to those 22 countries, 37 other nations wrote a letter officially defending China's human rights record, saying that China has made incredible advances to their human rights protection program, and yeah, just kind of defending what they're doing to these Uyghur people and to Hong Kong and Taiwan. And it's very ironic because a lot of these nations from the 37 nations, they are Muslim nations. So nations like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, the UAE. So I found it pretty ironic because these Muslim people in China are being persecuted, but these other Islamic nations are not standing up for them. And when I looked into it, it was probably because they had pretty big political ties with China, so they didn't want to like sever their relationship with them. And then as well as a lot of countries, a lot of nations in this group, they don't really have strong human rights laws in place themselves in their own country, and so they're more likely to accept the violations in other countries. So although the US didn't sign that condemnation letter, they are taking steps to call out China's human rights violations. So the Uyghur Act of 2019, it was an act passed in the Senate, and it directs the president to impose restrictions on exports to China that allow them the capability to suppress human rights. So like I mentioned before, their surveillance techniques were iris scanners, DNA sampling. So all of these advanced tools that they're using, a lot of them come from the US. And so basically the president has blocked the export of these materials to China. And then it also bans the Chinese government officials who are responsible for the persecution of Uyghurs from entering the US. So they won't be allowed to get visas or anything like that. And then lastly, the Department of State must report to Congress on the human rights abuses in Xinjiang. So the most recent controversy surrounding this whole topic is Disney's recent release of their live action film Mulan. And this was already a pretty controversial movie to begin with because the main actress defended China's actions towards Hong Kong. But then recently it was revealed that several scenes from Mulan were actually shot in Xinjiang. And then towards the end of the film, their film's credits, they thanked institutions that assist with Uyghur abuse and Chinese Communist Party propaganda. And one of these institutions, they're directly involved with the abuse of these Uyghur people. And Disney did not address these controversies yet. So we're still waiting to hear back from them. But yeah, so it's a pretty controversial movie for many reasons. It didn't do well in the box office, didn't really do well in China either, but that was because the Chinese people thought Disney was kind of playing on these Chinese stereotypes and not really representing Mulan as how it actually is. So as American people, it's pretty hard to get in contact with the Chinese government and let them know like what they're doing to these Uyghur people are abusive and wrong, but there are still ways that we can be an ally. So the first thing we can do is contact local senators and ask that they co-sponsor the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. And basically this act will just prevent companies that use Uyghur labor from shipping their goods to the US, and so that we won't be able to buy goods made with Uyghur labor. And then we can donate to the Uyghur Human Rights Project. This is a nonprofit organization, and it helps research what's going on in Xinjiang, as well as it helps the Uyghur refugees who come to other countries settle in and things like that. And also their website is just a really great place to check out if you want to know more about this topic, because they constantly update it with news, and they're constantly doing research, like I said. And yeah, and lastly, we can boycott companies that use Uyghur forced labor. Recently, a list of about 83 companies was released, and they all use forced Uyghur labor. However, I've just put a few at the bottom, such as H&M, Nike, North Face, and Adidas. They've all been accused of using forced Uyghur labor. And so the best thing we can do right now is just to stop using these companies, stop buying clothes from them. And yeah, that's basically ways that we can be an ally. And yeah, here are my references.
All right, thank you, Michelle, for that. That was definitely a really interesting talk, and definitely learned a lot about a topic that I didn't know much about beforehand. So thank you so much for sharing all that information with us. Now is the time if anyone wants to ask Michelle some questions. If you want to get a little bit more information on this, we can have a little bit of a discussion. Okay, I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I can just
Ben, I do is,
yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out how to do the raise the hand thing. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good, Monica. Yeah, please ask away.
Didn't mean to interrupt. First of all, I wanted to say, Michelle, great presentation, really very interesting, and it brought light to things that I was not aware of either. And I wanted to ask you, I saw that you had your source page on the very back. Does that source page provide us with more information on these 83 companies that use this Uyghur labor? Like, is there ability for us to fact check some of these information and some of these companies?
So the sources on the last page do not include that, the 83 companies. However, if you search forced Uyghur labor, there will be several websites and several articles that come up with these companies. And one of them is this nonprofit organization called Save the Uyghurs. And they're the ones who posted the 83 companies.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to double check, and I always like to fact check and look on both sides just to make sure. So thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Michelle, those 83 companies, you listed like kind of 4 really big ones. Is there any other companies that maybe stood out to you?
There are companies such as Mercedes, Fila, a lot of sports companies, sports athleisure wear companies. I can't think of any more at the top of my head. But yeah, those are the 4 biggest companies that stood out to me that I know that a lot of college students probably wear brands from these companies.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of it is like clothing. Is that seen to be what's mostly being manufactured?
Yeah, most of it is clothing. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to ask Michelle? I think we might have someone that's connecting to the audio, possibly. So Michelle, I guess I'm wondering, kind of based on that, this has been getting a little bit more attention, kind of like internationally, globally in the news. Have you seen, like, how has kind of like China kind of reacted to that? Have they made any kind of changes, or is there anything that has changed at all?
So at first, when news released information about these re-education camps, China kind of denied their existence, saying that they're not putting Uyghurs in these camps. However, recently, they've come out and said that these camps they do exist. However, they are for the benefit of like the Chinese people as a whole and for the benefit for these Uyghur people. So they're trying to make it seem like they're not doing abusive things to them by saying that it's mostly just like an education camp. However, like we all know what is really going on.
And also, have you seen any like, obviously there's some international pressure. Is there any pressure happening like within the country that you've seen anything?
With pressure within the country, I'm not sure, honestly. I would have to look into that, see how the Han Chinese people are responding to this.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then here's a question we have in the chat. What are the main organizations that are trying to stop this?
So there are a lot of organizations that are directly involved with helping Uyghur refugees. And also the UN is still trying to ask for access into the region. However, they haven't really been successful so far. So The organization that I mentioned on the last slide, the Uyghur Human Rights Project, they're probably one of the biggest nonprofit organizations that are involved with this issue. However, there are also like a lot of different other nonprofit organizations like Save the Uyghurs, like I mentioned before. They're all trying to stop and try to, I guess, contact the Chinese government and let them know that what they're doing is a human rights violation.
Great, awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Is there any other questions that anyone might have? This is kind of your last chance to ask her any questions. As you're maybe thinking about them, let me just share my screen real quick. I just want to talk to you about what we have coming up next for Virtual Campus Sustainability Month. All right. So what we have next here is we actually have a talk from one of our interns, Thomas Giselle. He'll be talking about how natural disasters are impacting low-income communities, and that's actually later today at 2 p.m. So hopefully you'll have time to join us. Tonight we have a really interesting documentary, and this is going to be something that the whole state of Texas is going to have the opportunity to participate in. We've partnered with TRACS, the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability. They also have a lot of different virtual events, but this is a really exciting opportunity. It's the Condor and the Eagle. There's going to be a panel discussion. It's free to view the film. You can see the link where you can register right here on the screen, and there'll also be a discussion after. So I think it'll be a really great opportunity. And then on Friday, tomorrow, we have 2 more intern presentations. We have Lily, and she's going to talk to you about intersectional environmentalism. It's a really interesting topic, and so I would also definitely recommend that y'all check that out. And then Shreya is going to talk to you about colorism and kind of showing how that started during colonialism and what that looks like today. So that should be another interesting talk that I think a lot of people maybe don't know about. So that's everything that we have coming up next. And then you can also see that we do have a code word. I did drop this in the chat earlier, so you can see the code word right on my screen right here. So make sure you write that down, keep track of that, and submit that to the email to claim your prizes. So that's everything that I wanted to say. Let's see if I have any questions that came up in the chat. We have thank you, Michelle. Good presentation. Another person that was thanking you for the presentation, Michelle. So I also thank you and appreciate this information that we were given. So with that, we'll say goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you all back here at 2 p.m. I hope you all have a good rest of your morning. Take care, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming.